4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Hello and welcome to the Sunset Safari. And you can see we are with lions. The two same lionesses we were with on the Sunrise Safari that made a meal of baby wildebeest overnight. My name is Brent Smith. I have Virm on camera. We have Jamie and Andrew in the other vehicle, and Kirsty and Lou in final control. And this is Safari Live. Fat, lazy lions in the heat. It's over 80 Fahrenheit, around 30 degrees Celsius. And the lions haven't moved very far from where we left them this morning. Water close by, and I'm quite certain they will move again later on this evening. They've probably just been moving around from shade to shade. You can see heavy breathing. Reasonably full tummies, not overly full. Oh, bless you. Looks very comfortable there, that lioness does. Always great to start a safari with a big cat. And remember, we are live, so you're seeing these cats at the same time as I am. And you are able to ask us questions about them. And you can do that by emailing us some questions at wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Probably going to sit here for a little bit longer before we move out, see what else we can find. The lions are not going to move at all during the heat of the day at this time of the year. So we'll probably head back here towards probably around 6-ish and see if they're getting moving. So we'll spend a few more minutes with these lions. As I said, I don't think any movement is going to happen anytime soon. So let's go say good evening to Jamie.
A very good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. How wonderful is it to have lions back with us once again? Been a while since we've had a chance to see them, and actually fantastic to see the Styx females for the first time in a very, very long time. Right, well, for those of you who missed the Sunrise Safari this morning, we started trying to track down the magnificent Queen of Juma, who's pulled one of her disappearing acts. I cannot work it out. She's got to be somewhere in this block. Well, I think she does. I had her tracks leading in here, and I don't have any tracks coming out. And yet she has a wonderful way of jumping roads or doing something. I don't know what she does. Maybe she's got little stamps with her footprint that she walks backwards and stamps with. I don't know. But she's got to be around here somewhere. Last night, as the unfortunate saga of the wildebeest calves showed us, was perfect hunting weather for the big cats of Juma. And I'm fairly certain that Karula would have been taking advantage in much the same way that the Styx females did. We know that there are big herds of Impala in this area with lots of youngsters. And I would say that the chances are high that she managed to grab herself a snack at some point yesterday evening. The lion tracks, the last tracks I had of her, the lion tracks at some point walked over her tracks, which tells me that they must have come from sometime really early last night. So she's had plenty of time to do her usual Karuna meandering through the bushes and disappear off. We're going to continue to do loops, and hopefully at some point when it starts to cool down a little bit, it is a bit muggy, a bit sweaty and warm, hopefully as she starts to move around we might pick up on alarm calls announcing her presence for all of us. The other thing, of course, that I have planned for this afternoon is something I mentioned this morning, I want to see if we can find that other hyena with those brand new cubs that we had such a brief glimpse of with Jane's a couple of days ago. I think they've moved away from that den, but I haven't really had a chance to confirm it. Apparently she had the cub up in her mouth. She looked like she was going to shift them around and maybe move them to a different area. And I think that den site, since that tree has been pushed over around there, has become slightly less appealing as a home for those hyenas. So there's a chance that she's moved them. I think we're going to have unless we stumble upon Karula hiding somewhere in the shade, we're going to be doing a little bit of a tour of the various hyena dens around the property, and let's see if we can't catch up with them and figure out what on earth is going on. It's nice to have so many new arrivals. Time of plenty for the hyenas. First of all, because there's so many babies around, and also the fact that the drought has weakened to a certain extent a lot of the animals and made hunting them a lot easier. The clouds are building again, but I'm starting to, I'm sort of learning not to get my hopes up too much that the storm and the rain are going to actually happen. Yesterday was a big build-up for a couple of drops, and that was it. Hopefully tonight will be different, and maybe we'll actually get some serious rain. Well, I'm going to continue on my search for the wonderful spotted cat of Juma, but in the meantime, Brent is with some other flat cats so we can head back across to him.
So, as I said, we're going to stay with these sleepy lions for a little bit. I'll give you one last look. We definitely will be back here later on in the safari. They definitely don't look like they're moving at all. So we've just had a male lion take over, and Sandy and Flora is noting that the nipples look large and wondering if she's pregnant. She is not pregnant, and she doesn't have cubs, and I doubt we're going to have cubs for a few months yet. There has just been a recent male coalition takeover, so generally it's quite a bit of time before the next set of cubs will be coming through. Nice and hot. The lions have got water close by. They've got a bit of shade. I think the only movement they will be doing is going from shade to shade. So we'll be back here a little later. In the meantime, we're going to go see what other fantastic creatures are out there in the African bush this sunset safari. Like to know what percentage of prey species, specifically, let's say, buffalo and wildebeest, are killed by predators as opposed to dying naturally. Well, Richard, one could argue that being killed by a predator archer is dying naturally, but I think you're referring to old age, and I would say in an area where you have big cats and other predators, I would say very, very few ever make it to old age. When they do get to old age, they would normally be caught by a predator. So we're going to head towards the treehouse waterhole and check along the Mwati. Hopefully maybe some Ellies around. Red-billed hornbill. So rain keeps evading us, and we think it's coming. Last night we rushed home, and we had to stay closed down because of all the lightning, but lots of lightning and thunder, but no rain. And then it threatened all morning, and the sun came out this afternoon. It's still incredibly hot, and we're still waiting for the rain. Down the road from the lions, not too far at all. So Impala and babies in the shade. The most sensible animals are at this time of the day in the heat. Careful guys, the lion's just up the road. Oh, so cute, the little Impala. All legs. How alert they are even at this very young age. Got quite a stiff breeze this evening. Just keeping the temperature a little bit cooler. So it sounds like Jamie's got some tracks to show you, and so let's go have a look.
Just to give you a little bit of a demonstration as to what I mean about leopard tracks. Believe it or not, what you're looking at there is the tracks of our Queen of Djuma. Well, I suspect it's the Queen of Djuma anyway, walking up the road. And I'm going to hop out so I can show some of the new viewers how the tracks work and roughly what size they are. Oh, my word. I nearly tumbled straight out of the car. Let me grab a stick. Useful for drawing. So believe it or not, this is a little leopard track here, and we know it's a leopard because, first of all, because of the size. So it's quite small. It's only really the size of the palm of my hand. But also there's, if you look really, really carefully, there's 3 lobes at the back. Very tricky to see. It's the back pad. The light makes it a bit more difficult. And the fact that this is a main road ages the tracks really fast because cars come past and kick up dust onto the tracks, and they don't keep that clear, crisp outline that the tracks do in other areas. What I will tell you about this particular leopard is she was walking quite fast. So typically when leopards walk, their front foot, their back foot lands where their front foot was. That's at their normal walking speed, and that's a way of doing things, walking quietly, making sure that your disturbance level to the area around you is reduced. But when they start to walk slightly faster, they get a distance where the back track starts to move in front of the front track, and that tells us that the leopard was moving quite fast. And you can see how for a fresh track here, as a contrast, this kudu track that's heading off in that direction, you can see the outlines really, really clearly. So this has come sometime today and stepped over her tracks from last night. Now for people new to tracking, the leopard tracks are, or sort of big cat tracks, have 3 lobes at the back, and then the dogs and the hyenas have 2 lobes at the back. And I'm really distracted because there's an inchworm on my hat, but I'll show you that in a moment. I can just see about it in my sort of peripheral vision. And sort of moving along the rim. Hello, buddy. So what I want to do just quickly, try and keep him there for the moment, Let's just draw what I mean, because it's really tricky to see. I'm not an artist. I don't claim to be. But here's roughly what this leopard track looks like if it were clear. So 3 lobes at the back. Oopsie. Do this better. 3 lobes at the back, 2, 3, back pad, and then 4 little toes. Leopard tracks are really, really neat compared to lion tracks. Lion tracks are slightly messier. Leopard tracks are sort of these perfect circles. Really, really interesting tracks to look at. And she's heading up the road, and where she goes from here is pretty much anyone's guess, just because of the level of traffic that this road has had on it. Oh, let's take my hat off so we can say hello to my friend. Tiny, tiny little inchworm. Can you get him there, Andrew?
Yeah.
Lifting himself up to explore, see where on earth he's ended up. This is not where he was meant to be. He must be very, very confused. Hey, dude. Would you like to be returned to your tree home? Tiny little creature. It's one of the smallest ones I've seen. Let's try and release him back where he belongs, if he will let me. There you go. That's it. Well done. Ooh. He might be a little bit motion sick bobbing about on that particular branch, but at least it's a better habitat, more suitable habitat than my National Geographic hat. Now the question also becomes, I've perched myself precariously on the ridge of the road, which would explain the angle that I'm sitting at, sort of roughly tilting. I don't know how, Andrew, how you feel, but you sort of look as if you might slide off the end. But anything to be able to show you tracks clearly. So, that's the last track I had for Karula. Where did she go from here? Ah! It's not ideal. Should probably make sure the door's closed. I'm really glad I wasn't leaning on that. Although I'm pretty sure that would have been hilarious. How many times have I done that? I do that all the time. I never ever check that the door is shut. It's really quite an important lesson. Important lesson for me to learn. Now you see the tracks vanish. Like she never existed. How does she do that? It's amazing. It's mind-boggling. Unless, of course, she walked over where all the cars have driven, which is also a possibility. I suspect, and it is a guess more than anything else, I suspect she's gone up into this block. Usually with animals and tracking, about 70% of the time, the side of the road that they're walking on is the side that they then go off on. So it's not a certainty, but it is slightly more likely. These tracks are not fresh, and she would have spent, because it was cloudy today, she probably would have spent a lot of the day moving. I don't think it's worth jumping off and going for a walk just yet. I think it's worth still checking around, trying to get into Karula's head and where she's going to decide to go from here. I mentioned it this morning that this is right on the boundary of her territory with Shadow. But I believe that Brent has a wonderful bird, so let's head across to him.
So guys, we've just spotted a really pretty bird. I'm just trying to get another glimpse of it. See him there, Goldie? There it is. It's not one we see too often, but we hear it calling all the time. So the bird is out there. It's an orange-breasted bushshrike. Hopefully it'll turn and show us that incredible orange breast. Let me try and get a little bit closer. Have you heard him calling there? Hopping. There's another call it makes. Like, zoom in, Bully. A little bit higher. it back a bit. Okay, this is one of the fun things about birds. I can see him with my eye. I'm just going to find him in the monitor. Oh, there he goes. Okay, there. Worry, top half.
He's on the top.
Go, zoom, 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 zoom. Up. Ah, he's just floating. No, still there. Okay, zoom in there. There he is. Oh no, turn around. Ah, he didn't want to show us his orange breast. Nice camera work, Goldie. So the temperature is very strange at the moment. It just dropped a couple of degrees. And I'm wondering, there's still lots of clouds around us, but I'm not sure. Yes, guinea fowl chortling away. They were around here somewhere. All seem to be in very vocal mood and flying around, and there's that's little bee eaters all over the place. Try and wait for them to land. And also I just saw a European bee eater. I can hear a European bee eater. I'm just trying to spot it now. As this temperature drops, the birds seem to have come alive. Oh, let's go. Have a look over there. Oh, I heard it and I didn't know. He took off before I... Okay, I've seen where they've landed. Since the birds are on such fine fettle, see if we can find you a few for those keeping bird lists to add to your species. European bee eaters have migrated that way. Come to the right there, they're sitting. There's one. Now these guys have migrated all the way from Europe, believe it or not. So I've actually seen them in the south of France and in Spain. And they've come to spend the European winter in the African summer. Try and sneak forward. They are quite pretty birds. If they sit for a while. Let's try and get it on the right. We'll try and find one on the right side of the light. Oh. So, if there are any new viewers out there, we encourage you guys to keep lists of your birds, mammals, trees, butterflies, whatever we might find. There we go, on the right side of the light. I'm going to snap a picture of the first European bee eater for me of the season. Also, screenshots are encouraged. You can share them on our Facebook page, Safari Live, or you can share them on Twitter using the hashtag Safari Live. And off we went. Lots of birds around here. It's actually even worth doing another little loop through to the edge of the drainage line, see what other bird species we can get out of this area. Oh, there we go, it took off, but going to land on the road in front of us. One of the more common bird species, but if anyone's new to keeping bird lists, a nice one to have. The Cape turtle dove. And one of our more common, we have them calling, they say Cape turtle, Cape turtle. So, we've got a new viewer on YouTube. Eric, welcome to Safari Live. I really love speaking.
It seems as though we lost Brent there for a couple of seconds, but I'm sure he'll be back up and with you very, very shortly. I hear he's been adding prolifically to your bird list, so I will endeavour to do the same and to keep up with him. I hesitate to challenge him though, for I fear that is a dangerous pathway. At the moment, I'm working on the assumption that I might have missed Karula's tracks crossing somewhere through here, especially in the dark and the gloom. I'm checking to see if she didn't head for the nearest water. What I can tell you though, what I have just learned, just checking around from here, is that the lions came from this area. The lions moved in from Simbambili sometime last night before wreaking devastating havoc on our poor young wildebeest. The wind has really picked up. It's blowing from a strange direction. It feels like it's blowing from the southeast and the clouds are building. And I've proved to be completely incapable of predicting anything that happens with the weather at the moment, so I'm not even going to try. But it does have a rather ominous feel to it. Ashley, I wish you could send some of your rain here. Apparently there's lots and lots of rain in Missouri. We really need it here. We would love to have some. I wish there was a way you could. But hopefully it will come. We just have to wait. It's always amazing how powerless we are against things like rain. Oh my word. Is that what I think it is? I don't know. I mean, geez, if that's a... I'm looking at this enormous mark in the road. Now, my first thought was a snake, but that's not possible because a python that size would not be moving in a straight line like that. I'm just going to hop out one moment. Disentangle myself quickly. Interesting. If it is a drag mark, it's a huge animal. Which way is it going? It's definitely going this way. The sand has been pushed up in this direction. Trying to look around it to see if there's any tracks on either side. It does sort of curve around and it disappears. It'd be awesome if it was an enormous python. I don't think that's what this track is. Where does it go from here? Now, unfortunately, I can't investigate any further because that is Simbambili and I can't go there. But that is really interesting. What do we think that is, everybody? It can't be a python because they move in that sort of serpentine motion. They don't really use that rectilinear motion that puff adders do. They don't create that straight line. But there's no tracks around it. I thought even maybe an elephant scuffing its toe. But there's no elephant tracks. It is a mystery. Could be a drag mark. But I don't... In fact, a drag mark is probably the most likely, especially if it's a leopard drag mark. A big animal, so it was probably a male leopard. And that would potentially explain why the tracks are so hard to see. I just don't see any tracks around it. Mysterious. Very mysterious. Racking my brains here. Sort of, it's not uniform at all, which is also what suggests the possibility of a drag mark. Snakes tend to leave relatively uniform tracks. Investigating that leadwood quickly, trying to see if there's something hiding up there. Oh, the desire to follow that track is very, very powerful. Not powerful enough, however, to go wandering and trespassing. Well, I'm fairly certain that's a drag mark. As to the animal that made it, I'm not quite sure. It could be a hyena and it could be a leopard, a big leopard. What you usually see with drag marks, though, is, especially with hooves, so if something like a big antelope is killed, the hooves drag on the ground and they create sort of clear lines through the drag mark, which we don't have here. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this one. Unless it was a snake that was spread out and sunning itself here and then got a fright and moved off really fast. That would also be a possibility, but then that's a huge python. I think that might just be one of the mysteries of the afternoon. I'm going to rack my brains and see if I can't figure it out. I don't know. Have you got the mark there as well?
Negative.
Negative. So maybe it was because a large antelope being dragged from here to there, it would have left some kind of evidence on the grass. I can't see anything. Mystery. I love a good mystery, but less so when I can't actually follow it to figure it out. Oh well. There's no leopard tracks. Pat Cook has suggested that it might be a monitor lizard. I can't see the feet on either side. And if it is a monitor lizard, then it was dragging its belly far more than they usually do. And also it would be an absolutely enormous monitor lizard. It would definitely be the biggest monitor lizard I've ever seen. And I think if I were to see that monitor lizard, I'd actually be quite terrified. It would be roughly equivalent to a Komodo dragon. Python, maybe. Python seems to me to be the strongest possibility, but even then I'm not entirely sure. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around, go and have another close look, and in the meantime, let's head across to Brent and some buffalo.
So we're at Treehouse Waterhole. There's a tiny bit of water left, some buffalo and a warthog, all sharing the wallow. Very peculiar weather we're having at the moment, though. So it's cold wind, but it's very hot. But what spooked the buffalo? That was very strange. Could be this wind that they're not so relaxed with. Warthogs out of here. Maybe they smelled something. Trying to see or hear what's around that could have startled those buffalo. Warthogs. Maybe they're just being a bit jumpy with the wind, and we have been lions all about last night. There's 2 Styx lionesses moving around. very, very quiet. Not a bird sound after that burst of bird life earlier. Incredible how it's changed in about 10 minutes. Just an update on what's going on elsewhere. That pack of wild dogs that we see quite regularly was found this morning to the east of us. And they killed an Impala, so they're all sleeping, happy, fat and happy. Hopefully they decide to come visit us tomorrow. One thing about going to those water holes where the buffalo bulls are, you pick up lots of flies as friends. And I think I'm just going to go a little bit fast, quickly try and get rid of some of the flies. There we go. We've got rid of one or two of them at least. Strange clouds for this part of the world at the moment. Almost reminds me of a rainforest summer clouds. But while we keep searching, let's go see what Jamie's got.
Well, I have a conclusion. It is a guess. It is a rough guess. And I've decided that I think it's probably one of the only options. Oh, I see. Is that... Am I imagining things, or is there an elephant up there? I think I might be imagining things. We'll go and investigate anyway. So my suspicion... I love that, Sandy. Sandy suggested it was a giant land snail. Well, there's an option that I didn't consider, but I like it. Suggested a leopard dragging a snake. That's a good one. That I didn't think of. And then he has suggested that maybe it was a booby trap laid down by a lion attempting to trick me out of my vehicle to therefore, I'm guessing, then ambush me. I guess that's a possibility, but I don't think I'd make much of a meal for a hungry lion. But you never know. They might be canny. I really want to go and see what those animals were that I just saw crossing the road. So, my guess, for what it's worth, if it were a drag mark, I suspect we would have seen more evidence of it, even on that rocky soil on either side. Just because drag marks, the items being dragged tend to be heavy enough to leave that kind of impression. The only place we could see it was on that really sandy patch of road. That also combined with the fact that when I sat down and looked at it really closely, first of all, I couldn't see any tracks around it. And second of all, I couldn't see the stones, the little pebbles in the road hadn't been pulled all that far away from their original position, which suggests to me something moving over them rather than being dragged across them. So it could have been a python moving in a very strange way, or, here it is, or it was two snakes mating. And I'm not sure how many of you, I've just found Gorilla's tracks, the sneaky leopard. Sorry, distraction. How did she end up here? Where did she come from? Unless this is shadow. This could be shadow. Try and show you what I mean. They're actually quite nice and clear. Okay, so she's done that thing where she walks along power lines and then on to Triple M. Oh, curious cat. Where are you hiding? Okay, I got distracted by the leopards, but let's finish off the saga of the mystery track. Mosu, you were wondering how I knew which way it was going. Just by the way that where the soil had been pushed. And it's hard to explain without me going straight back, but essentially when something moves, it pushes soil either in that direction or in that direction, depending on how it's moving. If it's a snake, then you get them slightly on the outward bends where the soil builds up. Now I suspect, and it is just a suspicion, that if it was a snake, then that's the way it was moving, because they move like this. So when their body pushes up against the sand, if they're moving forward, then the sand is going to build up behind the curve of the body, if that makes sense. That being said, my mating snake's guess is just a guess. I just can't figure out what else it might be, unless it is a really big python that just moved in a strange way. Where's this leopard gone? Oh my goodness, the leopards are running circles around me at the moment. There, she's still here. And as soon as the clouds come out, it gets really difficult to go tracking. Especially on a main road like Triple M. But keep your eyes peeled, because there's a very good chance that she's around here somewhere. At the moment, it looks as though the tracks have moved off into Simbambili, but you never know. She might come back out onto the road. She's been doing a lot of territorial markings. So, supposition again, maybe Karula is very determinedly patrolling her territorial boundary because of that encounter that she had with Shadow recently. So she's making sure to reinforce her dominance on the western edge. And just because they're mother and daughter doesn't necessarily mean that they really want to be sharing land. But of course the territorial boundaries are fluid. So every now and again they've got to come and just reinforce and remark all of the bushes. I know that in that sighting with Brent, you will have seen how Karula sprayed, urine marked, and then Shadow urine marked in exactly the same place. So there's a little bit of a battle of wills at work here. I wonder if that isn't why. That's one option as to why she's patrolling this far west, if it is her. The other option, of course, is that Tingana came around in this direction and that she's out looking for some evening company. So many mysteries that the bush holds. Now, Barbara, you were wondering about my mating snake theory and saying, don't they roll over while they're mating? Now, I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of black mambas mating, but they sort of coil around each other and they move together in that way. So sort of coiled around together with the male's reproductive parts pressed up against the cloaca, so the opening of the female. And they move together like that. The other reason why I thought that was a possibility was that there was a mysterious mound of sand. Ooh, snake. Speaking of snakes. Sure. That was very fast. That was a very, very fast. And into the log. Sure. Sunning himself on the road. Oh, where did he go? Now, unfortunately, I can't even loop around there to follow up on where we went. Just because that takes us outside of our traverse zone. looked like one of the sand snakes. A dark stripe running down its back. And it moved very, very rapidly. But that does give us a nice opportunity to show you what I mean about directions. I've got its track here, and I'll show you what I mean about the serpentine motion as well. So that snake shot off doing this, and this is the track that is left behind. Try and position so that Andrew can show you. Is that still too close, Andrew? Too close. Whoopsie. My mistake. Bear with me one moment. Sort of roughly see it there. There you go. On the subject of snake tracks, you can see how that curls. I'm going to jump out again. Maybe we might get another glimpse of it. I don't think so, though. I think it got such a fright as we came barreling down towards it. Another pointer stick. So there's the sort of the best example of the motion as it coiled in this direction. You can see the track moving in that way. It actually almost elevated at the point that it was so frightened, it barely left a track here. It moved so fast off. But here, if we look at where the sand is piled, as it curved like this, around in this direction, it pushed sand off into this corner because it was propelling its body forwards. So as it went around that corner, the sand piles there. Then as it goes around this corner, the sand piles more towards this direction. So that's a way of determining which way the track is going. But with a drag mark, it sort of works in the other direction. So if I'm dragging something along, it pushes sand ahead of it. So it's a difference in terms of snake motion versus drag mark direction. Okay, well that was a fortuitous event, considering that we were just chatting about snake tracks. The leopard tracks have moved into Simbambili, which means that we need to pay a visit to the northern boundary of Arathusa and see if we can't pick them up coming out there. Figure out if it is Karula or if it is Shadow. Bye-bye, little snake. Sorry for the fright. Was wondering, we chatted a bit about the possibility of what snake it was, Andrew and I, and we thought maybe black mambas mating, creating that track. And Kate, who wants to know, if a black mamba bites another black mamba during mating, will that snake die? And the answer is they do have a level of resistance to their own venom, but they don't. That were moving across ahead of us were these magnificent kudu. Hello, boys. Two of them, hopefully they stick around. Some of the most breathtaking creatures that we have out here. Male kudus are really quite spectacular in appearance. These look like young males, although, oh hello, there's a whole group of them here. Cool. Oh, you've got interesting horns. wow, okay. Kudu's everywhere. This one, this is the group that we often see, the group of 5 with some spectacular horn collections. There's the one with the really close together horns. And then there's one male who's also moving with this group who's got very widespread horns. There he goes at the back. Now, I've felt kudu horns and skulls before. They are incredibly heavy. So you can imagine the strength of the muscles in the neck to hold up that weight. Awesome, really nice. I love looking at kudu. There's something so dignified and slightly mysterious about them. Sort of retiring. And interestingly, they're doing a lot of grazing at the moment. All of them are. And that's interesting because kudu are primarily browsers, which means that they must be taking advantage of the new grass shoots that are coming up. You don't often see them with their heads down grazing. And a lot of feeding off the ground. You will see it happen, but their primary food source is leaves, not grass. But there's obviously a level of nutrition that's coming through at the moment. Of course, the wonderful thing about animals is that they don't ever read the textbooks. I've seen giraffe graze before, which is something quite bizarre to witness. And if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I might have doubted it. But they definitely do bend over and graze. Very, very occasionally. That one's got an interesting stripe pattern on the shoulder. That's so cool. It looks like somebody dripped paint down that stripe. It's all of them starting to develop those ivory tips to the horns that show a mature kudu bull. It's a youngish male. Only really got to 1.5 turns in those horns. They're all grazing. They could also be after little perennial shrubs that are coming through. Ooh, that stick went right in his eye there. That's why it's so important that they have the long eyelashes that they do have. Makes them very pretty to look at, but they serve a very important function in terms of protecting the eyeballs. When most of your food source is protected by thorns, I know that there is that one kudu that we've been seeing, or has been seen a couple of times, with a very damaged eye. It's important for them to be aware of their surroundings. This weather cannot decide what it's going to do. The wind is blowing from every direction. Rais has raised an interesting point about the way that the presenters talk. So apparently, which is something I'm completely unaware of, Raisa says all of the presenters say, let's see if we can't see it there, rather than saying, let's see if we can see it there. And I guess if we all do it, then it must be a South Africanism, especially if we don't pick up on it. There's certain things that come through in the South African English way of speaking that are completely bizarre, like saying just now. And we mean just now in a future sense, not the past tense. And we don't mean it just happened. We mean we're going to do it a little bit in the future. And if you want to get really complex in terms of our speech patterns, you must try and figure out just now, now. What's the other one? Just now, now.
In a bit.
In a bit. All of those have, right now, all of those have distinct meanings. And every South African will know what it means, but we couldn't for the life of you explain how it works. We really can't. It is just one of those strange things. So when you hear us saying, we'll do it just now, it must be very confusing if you're thinking we're talking in past tense, but we're talking future tense. It must be terribly confusing. It's something that I learned to, or I tried to, ease out of my my vocabulary and my way of speaking when I lived in the UK, just because I used to confuse people tremendously. I'm going to see if we can't get another view of them. Here we go, that's an okay view, just to be able to answer Matthew's question. Now, Matthew is 9 years old, and Matthew was wondering how heavy the horns are. Matthew, the answer is really very heavy. I've held a mature kudu skull before, and the whole skull plus the horns was somewhere in the region of about, I would say, about 12 kilograms, which is, how does the conversion work again? About 24 pounds, give or take. But that's including the skull. So the horns themselves, just on their own, are probably about 6 kilograms. So somewhere around 13 pounds. Imagine having to carry that on your head, because it's not just the weight of them, it's the length. So that's almost like they're on a lever, so when they bend their head forward, that weight must be tremendous. Watching a rather squeaky trailer drive past. Well, our kudu are disappearing off into thick bush. It's been a wonderful sighting with them. I always enjoy seeing these 5. They're just so extraordinarily beautiful. And in the meantime, let's head across to Brenton to see what he's up to.
So I've decided, we've been checking if we can find that herd of wildebeest so we can actually see how many babies are missing. Oh, hello, elephants. Oh, a nice young bull. Very early 20s. Hello, boy. Found there that you're eating. So he's eating some little flowers that are growing there. I can't see exactly which ones. I have to call it on the radio. One Madura and Drove, Sandy Patch Junction, vertical access. Hello, mister. Oh, there's a little acacia he's found. Hello, big boy. So he's probably about 5 feet from us now. He's young, but he is very big. Isn't that incredible? I love spending time with these Eddie bulls. I'm just going to move around in front of them again. This red thorn. well as the abutulons, or the yellow flower. You can see how close he is to us now. Well, so while we've got him here, I've got a question from Sal. How could I tell it was a bull so fast? There we go. So you look at the shape of his head. So the females have a much more angular head. He's got a sort of square head, and he's just that much bigger. Even though he's a young bull, physically just a lot bigger than a cow would be. And he's moving around, eating different plants out here in the open area. Looks like he's off to the next acacia. See those huge red thorns. The thorns of the red thorn pose no problem to an elephant. Thick skin and tough mouth. In the thorns go. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Wrapping his trunk right around that thorny branch, and you can see where it gets its name from. You can see the young branches of the tree, a slight reddish tinge. Sneaking behind us again. To the next red thorn. Standing by. Copy, thanks. So the elephants keep these red thorns pretty well trimmed. It's very seldom you see one as a big tree. And you can see even though that has been pushed down onto the ground, it's still growing. And a lot of these trees and animals have been living together for a long, long time. Oh, wind suddenly started howling a little bit. And I love about these bulls, they seem very slow and methodical. So while we're sitting here with this wonderful young Ellie bull, Mateo in Croatia would like to know, if you get lost in the African bush, what should you avoid at all costs? Well, Mateo, the most important thing to avoid would be running out of water. And elephants actually, oh, look at that. Great at finding water, so if you're in a dry area, you follow the big elephant paths, and they should eventually lead you to water, providing you can actually tell which way an elephant track goes. I've watched many people track elephants backwards. Okay, the other thing would be to definitely try find shelter at night, and if lacking finding shelter, you should try sleep in a tree where lions and hyenas can't get to you. But there is enough to eat if you're not too squeamish, and if you don't mind drinking water that tastes a little bit like elephant urine, you can normally find enough water to survive. Elaine in Michigan was noting how close that elephant came to our vehicle, and she'd like to know, do the animals come closer to the WildEarth vehicles than to the regular safari vehicles, and could she expect that if she came on safari? You could, Elaine, they will come as close to the normal safari vehicles as well. Amazing how dexterous their trunks are. Look at that, he's going to take that tiny little branch off. Oop. Yum, yum, yum. Nice fresh red thorn leaves. He's actually scratching his foot there. In an itch. Something like a stump to scratch it. Round to get that better side, his better side, not his back side. While we do that, Andrea in Ohio would like to know, what is the proper way to deal with a charging elephant? Not get yourself in that position in the first place would be my advice. But if you happen to get into that position, it really just depends on that exact moment, that time. Normally you stand still, keep still, shout, scream, all of the above. Whatever you do, don't run. Nope, we're not going to get through there. We're on the other side. Heading off into some thicker bush at the moment. And just see if he stopped to start feeding again. There we go. Olive, he's 5 years old. Welcome on the safari, Olive. Olive would like to know, how much does an elephant eat in a day? Well, in kilograms, Olive. And Ellie, oh, he might push down that little tree. Let's have a look. Looks like he's going to push down that little knob thorn. Olive would like to know whether he'll eat a whole tree. Oh, we're about to find out, Olive. Nah. Look at that. Oh, he's brought it down to a height so he can feed off it now. Clever boy. So, Olive, a male elephant like this will probably eat around 200 to 250 kilograms of vegetable matter, so trees, grass, leaves, bark in a day. And let me just try quickly do that in pounds. Hey, geez, it's 200 pounds. Oh, it's 100 pounds. So around 600 pounds of vegetable matter in a day. This young bull's by himself, but Jen is wondering, will bull elephants hang together or always stay by themselves? Well, Jen, they do quite often form little bachelor groups, but they're not nearly as set as the females, and they will sometimes wander off by themselves or stay in a little group for a while. We just got asked about charging a little earlier, and Whitney is wondering, why wouldn't you run from a prey animal? Wouldn't it relieve the pressure? Well, Whitney, as with most animals out in the bush, the movement incites that sort of instinctive to chase. So that's why you don't run from anything. It's the same as why I stop the car if elephants start getting a little bit angry. I don't drive off at it making noise. It'll incite them into chasing. They instinctively chase things that run from them. In Arkansas is wondering, when you look at Ellies, in the corner of their eye there's often some build-up, and all it is, Marianne, is it's not a tick, it's same as what we would probably call sleep when we wake up in the morning. Obviously we're able to wipe it away with our fingers. Ellies do wipe it away sometimes with their trunks, but you probably find it's a build-up of dust and other stuff from during the day. He's very lazy eating of this tree. Not even breaking it off, he's just putting the whole branch in his mouth and chewing. Look at that. See if he's actually going to break this branch. No. Puts the whole one in his mouth while still attached. And chewed through and gone. So once you're an adult elephant, there's very little to trouble you. And Karen, who's in Arizona, is wondering, do they have any natural predators? The only most obvious of the natural predators of an adult elephant is man. But when they're younger, lions and hyenas are potential natural predators. Or if they're sick or injured, lions and hyenas. So he's busy devouring this knobthorn. And we're going to leave him be, carry on seeing what else we can see. And while we do that, let's go see what Jamie's up to.
While you've been with Brent, I've been frantically scouring the northern boundary of Arethusa to see if our leopard has come out in this direction. Unfortunately, it looks as though, after all of our tracking endeavors, both morning and afternoon, it looks as though she's gone into Simbambili and stayed there. I haven't seen any evidence of tracks coming out onto this road and onto Arethusa. But you never know what's waiting around the next corner. Just a quick update since I've been listening to the Game Drive channel. I'm not sure which pack it is, but the guides do have a wild dog pack. Sounds like somewhere around the Londolozi boundary. So they're all following up there. Hopefully it's the Sands pack, and hopefully they're on their way up towards us. James has come up with an interesting idea. Hello, Impala, why are you looking so skittish? Sorry, James, I'll get to your point in a moment. There's a lot of Impala in there, but they're all very jumpy. Might be the wind. All closely packed together. Hello, Impala. What's happening? Is the wind making you nervous, or are the males making you nervous? I think it's the male. I hear a black-bellied bustard. I think the male has put pressure on them. We've spoken a lot about the fact that the Impala have become a little bit confused during this time of all of the lambs being born. The males think that they're going to get lucky, and they've been herding the females. And I think that's why the females look so on edge, plus the fact that the weather is very strange and quite windy, which doesn't help matters. And they're all peering off though. I think it's this wind as well. It's just got them hugely unsettled. Now they're madly dashing off for no apparent reason. Or some of them are, anyway. Bizarre. Look, there goes the whole herd. They're all going to start going now. No alarm calls. There's something just spooked them. Strange. Just weather and wind making them feel insecure. We keep our eyes peeled though, because there's a chance that there's a predator that they're smelling, but they're not quite sure where it is. But we'll definitely keep our eyes peeled. I want to see if I can find that black-bellied bustard that was calling as well, just because they're hilarious to watch. And while I look for him, James, you came up with this, or you've asked whether or not people ever GPS the territorial markings of the leopards and then draw outlines of their territories. And it's something that is done, and not quite to that degree that you could call every scent mark a border. So they will scent mark within their core, like center of their territory, as well as along the borders and along the outlines. It's more about placing regular scent marks throughout their territory. But scientists do record them and map them. A lot of them use software called Quantum GIS or ArcView GIS, which is a very complex mapping system that can use as a way of determining rough home ranges and territories, and then sort of core kernel densities. And it's something that I used to do not with leopards and lions, but with rhino mittens, as a way of sort of establishing their core areas and their favorite places around the reserve. So it does get done. Sorry, excuse me. But a very valid point, and yes, it is a method that scientists do use. It would be almost impossible, though, unless you were following the same animal all day, every day, to record all of the different places where they mark their territories. The reason that we know, or so clearly, where the boundary between shadow and gorilla is because we've seen them both patrolling that particular area as regularly as they do. And then, of course, the encounter that Brent managed to get on the live sunrise safari about a week ago. But leopard territories are interesting, and I think we'll probably find as more and more research comes out, particularly from Panthera, we'll learn a whole new amount about the way that leopards work and move about within their territories. They are fascinating creatures, and we tend to think of them as sort of set jigsaw puzzles that tessellate perfectly, but of course that's not how it works in real life. And I'm sure there's lots more to be learned about, for example, the way that females populate the surrounding areas with their female offspring, and how they go about doing that in the way that Karula has done so incredibly successfully with hers. For example, not a leopard territorial marking, but definitely an old hyena latrine. This place is peppered with these patches of white of old hyena dung. And that's quite a nice example of explaining the whole territorial system. So what hyenas will do when they mark their territory, and that's old, by the way, that's why it's so crushed down and fine. There's some more up in that direction as well. So what hyenas will do around their territory, they'll mark the borders, so the edges of their territory, particularly where they know that there's a large sort of neighboring clan that they feel particularly inclined towards keeping them out. And then what they'll also do is they'll mark regular pathways that they use frequently, and they'll mark around their den sites, not at the den site, but around them. And the more concentrated the latrines get, the more that you see them, the closer you are to the sort of central core territory of that clan, and you're probably more than likely close to a den site as well. And that was another thing that I used to do, just fully answer James's question, was sorry. I'm nearly better, I promise. Right, hyenas. That was another thing that I used to do, was sit and mark latrine sites on a map for the various hyena clans that were in the reserve that I worked in, just to get a rough idea as to where their core territories were, and then using that as a way of estimating or guessing where their new den sites might be, and then going and walking that area in a sort of a grid. try and find the den. I think I've managed to get my cough under control there. Sometimes it sort of sneaks up on one, takes you by surprise. This weather really can't decide what it's doing. 1 minute we're in the sun, 1 minute we're in the shade. So we've just seen that really, really unusually skittish herd of Impala. And Fiona, you were wondering whether or not the Impalas are still giving birth every day. And the answer is it's definitely slowed down. But yes, there are still some pregnant ewes that will be giving birth every morning. But it definitely, the peak has sort of been reached, and it's now just the stragglers at the end that are starting to give birth. Antelope that we get out here, we see them as benign and rather harmless looking creatures until you're right up close to them, and then they are really, really quite big. Speaking from experience. And Shell, you were wondering if any of them would charge a person on foot in the same way a buffalo might do. The answer is the answer is no. For the most part, not really. It's highly, highly unlikely. But one of the most dangerous antelope, according to old legends from the great hunters of the past, because that's, you know, of course, a brilliant way of asserting dominance. I'm being highly sarcastic here. But apparently one of the most dangerous animals to hunt is the bushbuck. They can, if they are injured, become incredibly fierce, and particularly the males. Those horns are like spears or like daggers. And they could do serious harm. And there are a couple of recorded cases of people being killed by them. The other only real time where antelope charge is if they're really domesticated. So that's sort of the garden Inyala, the garden bushbuck, creatures that have become really used to having people in their surroundings, but are still wild animals. And that's why I've always discouraged, or heavily discouraged, people from feeding them, because they become more and more familiar. And even if it's just an accidental, especially the young males with the horns that are just starting to grow, that are so sharp, they could accidentally just shift their head and they could do serious harm. And I know a woman was hurt recently just by feeding one of her garden Inyalas. Important to remember that they're wild. I have been charged by an Inyala before. I was so incredibly surprised that I barely even reacted to it. It took me so by surprise. It was chasing my dog, and the dog ran between my legs into safety, and the Inyala stopped his charge about a meter from me. And I was so surprised that I didn't even shout at him. I just watched it happen. Ah, Red Dam is not really a dam. Red Dam is mud. Interesting point from JJ in England. So one of the main reasons that we tell people, well, we suggest to people not to go swimming in our rivers, is the fact that there is something known as bilharzia in the water sources. And you're wondering how long they'll live in the ponds once the water's dried up, or in the dams, before they die off, and how do they then repopulate the water sources. I'm going to give you a rough estimate of an answer here, but I'm not entirely 100% certain I'm right. Generally, I'm not sure about the time span in which they'll die. I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not even going to try and tell you. So maybe if there is somebody out there who can let me know, that would be hugely useful. But generally, most bilharzia is found where there's east-flowing rivers that then fill up, say, water holes and dams, and then it builds up. When the river dries dries out ever so slightly, so it's not necessarily still flowing, but it has stagnant pools around it. That's where those snails really reproduce quite happily. So it's generally in the flowing rivers, and it's generally the east flowing rivers, slow flowing rivers, that you find the main sources of bilharzia. And something that is quite often a mysterious, unexpected illness, except of course if you live out here. Now, speaking of drying up water holes and the effects that it has, I believe that Brent is with our struggling Peter in the pan.
So we've decided to come pay our Pete the Pond Hippo a visit, see what's happening with him, and looks like he's got covered his scars up in mud. Doesn't seem to have dropped too much condition nor gained too much condition, and he's having a snooze. Such funny little ears hippos have. So in a few hours he'll be heading out to graze or possibly even go battle for a spot in one of the bigger water holes. Now his scars are quite deeply covered in mud at the moment, but he has got plenty of them. A male hippo's life is full of huge battles. And behind you can see there's some buffalo, Egyptian goose, and a blacksmith lapwing. Quite a strong wind blowing. There's a lapwing and a buffalo. Two lapwings and a buffalo. And then if we follow the lapwing, there's some grazing Egyptian geese. See them eating the nice fresh grass. And a red-billed oxpecker has just landed on Pete. So, just looking carefully there, I was trying to see if that oxpecker was going to open up one of the wounds on Pete's back, but it just used Pete as a drinking platform. But let's carry on. Let's see what else is around. Wildebeest and I have been in search of the wildebeest herd. Those of a bit confused. Viem's nickname from last year became wildebeest. He was the first person to film a live wildebeest bird. And we went searching far and wide for that wildebeest herd to see how many babies those Styx lionesses ate last night. Unfortunately, we weren't able to relocate on the herd. I'm sure they'll pop up at some point. And obviously quite a trauma-filled evening for them last night. We're going to head up towards quarantine, see what else is around there. And then in about 25 minutes or so, we're going to head back towards those lions. Such strange weather at the moment. much on this side of quarantine. I do know there's a really nice big herd of Impala on the other side, so let's go have a look what they're up to. We started with Impala here, but let's try get a little bachelor group, or let's try get up to where the females are. Oh, look at that. Nice big group. Lots of babies. Oops. Hello, little guys. We're here with a big herd of Impala antelope, and Joyce in New Hampshire. Wondering, do any antelope in Africa have antlers as opposed to horns? They don't, Joyce, because then they would be deer, and that's probably one of the most discerning differences between antelope and deer, is the fact that antelope have horns and deers have antlers. Horns are much more permanent things than the antlers that fall off seasonally. And listen to all that noise, that all the contact calls between the Impala mothers and babies. Oh, it sounds like burps. Let's try sneak a little bit closer to them. Let the car run for a little bit, let them get used to the noise of the engine. Right amongst the herd now. Oh, looks like they're gonna have a silly 5 minutes. Look at them go. Next lot coming across. So a lot of animals like to sleep on these big open areas like the quarantine clearings. It gives them a little bit of a better chance to spot potential predators. Grunting and meeing. So if there's a strong wind tonight, it'll be a worrying night for the Impala, and particularly the mothers. These little guys are very, very popular snacks amongst the predators. Very cute, all the babies. Oh, look at that little jump. Lovely light on them this evening. Oh, here comes the male off to the left there, and Hyena says that male did his job well. Well, you probably find lots of males did their job well, and dominant males in the herds during the breeding season change almost on a daily basis. Sweetums would like to know, how on earth do moms know their babies or babies know their moms? And it'll be by smell. Then just have a look at these two females. Look like they've seen something. They're suddenly very, very alert. Well, they were a second ago. So they've decided whatever they were looking at is not that much of a threat. Go. This is going to be fun, Graham. In front of us. When Impala runs, they all must follow. Look at them go. Behavior. Oh, wasn't that fun? It's a very much herd behavior. One animal runs and they all follow just in case there's a predator somewhere. Oh, let's go across to Jamie, who's also got something that's on the move.
Cute little dwarf mongoose. As Brent makes his way back towards the biggest predator on the reserve, we've got the littlest one. And what voracious little predators they are. I'm going to try get us a bit closer. They're quite relaxed, this group. Hello, monsters. You're up to mischief. Such little characters. A little squeak. Contact call. Oh, and down into the burrow. This is always the time where they are incredibly active. It's the perfect time to come out. It's not too hot, but they always stick close to their burrows as darkness threatens to descend. Itchy creatures. Now even they will be plagued by ticks and parasites, just the smallest species of tick, as well as the tick larvae, the pepper ticks. And one of my favorite things about them is how gregarious they are. Ooh, found something there. And the way in which they contact call to the other members of the group almost constantly. It's Impala. Couldn't work out what that sound was. They're always so busy, such busy little creatures, hunting for insects and scorpions. They are voracious killers of scorpions out here. This particular group we know fairly well on this parallel road, which is why they are some of the more relaxed ones. Little squeaks. Now what I'm dying to see, and I think we have to get really lucky, of course, is for us to be able to see baby dwarf mongoose. And this would be their peak breeding time, when the insects start to come out with the first rains. This is interesting behavior, going from entrance burrow to entrance burrow and squeaking. What are you shouting about, little guys? I love those little beady eyes. They always look so intelligent. And they have quite a complex little social hierarchy, very similar to meerkats. Oh, joining in the squeaks. There's one little one that is making a repeated contact squeak call. As I said that, he ran behind the car. Still squeaking, lots of squeaking. Whoop, and back again. What are you squeaking about, mister? Oh, watching these wonderfully complex little creatures. Daryl K. Bree was wondering whether or not they're like groundhogs, tunneling down and hibernating. They don't hibernate. They carry on throughout the winter. But of course our winters don't get nearly as cold as they can do in America. Oh, there's about 9 of them all dashing about in various directions. Andrew, as always, doing a sterling job of managing to keep them in shot. I said that and they vanished. There we go, well done. They don't hibernate, although they will. Winter's a little bit harder for them, dashing backwards and forwards, because there aren't as many insects for them to eat. But what they will do is they will find the things like dung beetle larvae, anything like that is sort of in a stasis for the winter, they'll find and dig up. And that's sort of how they subsist. And they're also experts at digging into scorpion tunnels. Most of the family's moved off now. Senegal lapwing. Banks of extraordinary cloud. Been the most tremendously strange weather. The clouds have built up and then gone away and then come back again. It's like the weather can't decide what it wants to do. Hopefully it's bringing some rain. It has made for some extraordinarily pretty vistas to watch. And the light is really rather beautiful. Alright, so no sign of the leopard coming back onto Arethusa. And I'm going to start racing back towards Juma so that we can follow up on the happenings at the hyena den and figure out what those hyenas have been up to. Not only are the dwarf mongoose prolific killers of insects, but they can also tackle snakes. And Christopher, you were wondering how big they are. Sorry, how big the snakes are that the dwarf mongoose can kill. And the answer is probably not much longer than a meter. What they can do in the same way that meerkats do is mob a snake. Not necessarily to kill it, but to chase it away from their network of burrows and termite mounds. So they do that. But in terms of killing snakes, I'd say probably not much longer or quicker than a meter. They are very, very quick animals, but they are not immune to certain of the snake venoms. They might have a little bit more resilience than we do as human beings, but they're not like honey badgers. Honey badgers can withstand strikes from some of the scariest snakes like cobras and sleep it off for a while and then get back up and carry on with their duties. But mongoose have to be a little bit more careful, especially with those tiny bodies. Isabella, who is 4 years old, wants to know whether mongoose are like guinea pigs. And Isabella, I think guinea pigs make much better pets. Mongoose bite a lot, I promise you. I've had a mongoose bite me in the nose before. So they don't make good pets. They also have a special gland on their bottoms that secretes a really, really ugly smelling substance. So I think if you're thinking about pets, stick to guinea pigs. But they're not like guinea pigs. They're much fiercer, much scarier little creatures. And they've got long tails. And speaking of animals with long tails, while we make our way towards the hyena den, I think that Brent has made his way back towards those lions. So let's head across and have a look.
So we are back with the two Styx lioness, and they are still very much flat cats. The temperature is dropping quite rapidly, so hopefully they do decide to move in the not too distant future. Windy weather, always good for a bit of hunting. And very strange weather, as we said. There's clouds coming and going constantly at the moment. I think they've moved maybe 30 centimeters since we were last here. Successful evening for them last night. Sarah would like to know, how different would the drive be if we just followed what we were interested in, not catering only to the viewers? I don't think it'd be too different, Sarah. Fortunately, most of us are interested in almost everything. So we love spending time with big cats. I love spending time with butterflies and trees. It'll be very interesting. I think I was hoping that these girls would get up a bit earlier and maybe go for a little hunt. Lots of babies around, and they make easy prey for the dominant predators. Just trying to have a look if I can get around so we can have a look at their faces. So, Lenny, who's in Pennsylvania, is wondering, would the lions be able to sort of decimate a whole year's worth of baby wildebeest? Because we've got such a small herd on quarantine, not sort of like the Serengeti. Lenny, it is possible, it's unlikely, but I'd probably guess around 70%, 75%. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to sneak through here, maybe. What do you think, Graham? Will we make it? We've done worse, yes. 70 to 75%, Lenny, probably a good number of how many of these wildebeest babies will make it. An elephant is... There we go. And you can see the lions didn't even lift their heads when we're crashing over there. Murphy's Law. And we just get us out of the hole, so get a little bit more steady for Voldy. How's that, yeah? And of course, as we go around, the one lioness just rolls over. So lions sleep for on average about 20 out of 24 hours if they're not eating. And even those bouts of movement are very short-lived. Walk for 20 minutes, sleep for an hour, walk for 20 minutes, sleep for an hour. It all just depends. You can see they're panting heavily, even though they didn't have the biggest meals last night. It's been warm today. And these two ladies are looking in quite good condition. Now, can you believe I used to see members of the Styx Pride many, many years ago in the southern Sabi Sands where I used to work. I think there were 8 or 9 adult lionesses back then. So very different at the moment. They've split into sort of 2s and 1s as far as I know. And we haven't seen a Styx lioness for over a month, 2 months, maybe even 2 months.
Speaking ahead and it was
Styx lioness?
Was it a groomer?
Ah, you're right, it was Styx or Tsalala. And that's crew. Peter had 2 lionesses, which we think were probably the Styx lionesses on Arethusa. But I haven't seen them in a good couple of months. Still, that one's still got some wildebeest left over on her shoulder. I don't think these lions are going to do anything just yet. Hopefully they will move before the end of this drive, though. So one of these lionesses is very obviously missing a lower left-hand canine. And Chad is wondering, how do lions lose their teeth? Well, generally through either fighting or hunting. Chad, that's how they will lose their teeth. And it's not uncommon to see lions with broken teeth or missing teeth. Lazy kitty cats. So what we will start looking for them to start moving is they should start stretching, grooming each other, a bit of urination or defecation. And those are sort of the signs that they're going to start getting moving for the evening. So Jamie's off to try see if she can find one of our other dominant predators here on Juma. And let's go see where she is.
I've got such a special surprise. Even I'm taken by surprise. I didn't see her at first. Hello, little one. Okay, all right. We'll just stop here for now. Cub's just dashed back into the hole, but it'll come out again. She is still here with her new babies. Hello, girl. That is not a hyena I recognize, but this den is still active. She hasn't moved her cubs. They're still here. Oh, flop. Mommy, if you lie like that, then your cub can't get out. She's a scruffy-looking creature. We're going to keep plenty of distance from her. I don't want to stress these tiny little cubs out. They're obviously still not used to cars yet, in the same way that the cub at the Gallagher shortcut den is. And that's because we've only just discovered them. Come on, baby, you can come out. It's okay. And this is the Philemon's Cutline Den. The very first den that was active when I started working at WildEarth. And we've come full cycle. The cubs that were tiny then have all grown up and pretty much left the dens, except for the last one. And times have changed. The elephants have done some serious landscaping. They've pushed over that huge shade tree, the knobthorn that was there. I don't recognize this female. I haven't had a good look at her. There's a chance that it's... she's got a very slit ear. That left ear has got a... The top is missing, and there's a bit of a slice down it. I was about to say there's a chance it's that female that was the mother of the oldest cub at the den when I first started working here in July. But I don't think so. I think I would have remembered that ear. Come on, baby, you can come back out. We might need to spend a bit more time at this den, getting the little ones used to our presence. And interesting to watch the behavior of these new mothers. We've seen it with the Gallagher shortcut mom as well. The way that they lie right at the entrance to the den, so that their little cubs don't have to go wandering too far to have access to them. They also spend far more time at the den than the mothers of the older cubs do. And that's just because their little ones need, just like puppies or kittens, need more regular feeding. Oh, big yawn. It's exhausting work being a mom. Nope, cub has gone to ground. Apparently there were two. Andrew, were you here with James? There were two. So there are two brand new little cubs in there. And they're just hiding out in the den. I'm hoping that if we just sit for the moment, they'll get brave again and come out. But I'm going to keep my voice down and give them plenty of space until they get a bit more relaxed with our vehicle being around. She's much older than the mother of the other den. Now, she'll still be part of the same clan. She just decided to settle in a different den site and have her cubs there. And that's fairly common. It's not uncommon for hyena clans to use different dens at the same time. And I've put it forward as a theory. It's a theory, I don't know if it's true, but I wonder whether or not mothers return to the den that they were raised in, or a den that they have... Oh, look at those teeth. Hello. Peekaboo. Hello, gorgeous. You can do it. Oh. Oh. The obstacles of life at that age and size. Trying to climb over mom's legs so she can get to nipple. Here we go. Well done, little one. Made it. Now, Whitney's asked a very perceptive question. We've chatted a lot about the holes of the hyena dens, and they're obviously too small for the adults or the sub-adults to enter, and that's very useful. It's a way of... Oh, cute. Quick bath from mom. Sorry, Whitney, I'll get to your question in a moment. Oh, look at the leg moving. Hello, Mom. Yes, you're very clever. Well done. So the holes in the den are really tiny, and it's a way of the cubs having an escape route. That means that nothing can follow them down there. Nothing like a lion or a leopard. And Whitney, you were wondering how they were formed. Cute. Really, she's doing a really important job here of keeping her baby clean and free from parasites, because they do build up in, and obviously the cub can't move out of the den to go and defecate and urinate when mom's away. Hello, Mom. Yes, you're beautiful in your own ugly kind of way. Sorry, Whitney. Whitney wants to know how the tiny holes are formed. So hyenas will start by occupying a burrow that's been dug into by aardvarks, but the smaller tunnels are actually formed by the hyena cubs themselves. Even at a really young age, they have that instinct to dig themselves a little cavern or a little tunnel where they can be safely ensconced. And then because the hyena clans use the same den site year after year, they become established, and then all that has to happen is the cubs have to excavate and maintain them a little bit whenever they move into a den that hasn't been occupied for a while. So the excavation work is actually done by the cubs themselves. Giving another good clean. I mentioned how the new mothers are hanging out around the entrance to the den, and B. Wilson has said it's almost like they are protecting the cubs by lying there. To an extent, absolutely. But of course, Mom can't always be there. And I think it's more just for ease of access for the cubs when they're still a little bit unsteady on those tiny little legs. Because we've seen now with the cub at Gallagher Shortcut, the mother moves further and further away from the den. Where's your other cub, Mom? So the hyena mom can't get into the den, and that raises the next logical point from Christy. Oh, hello. Oh, we are so lucky. I'm not sure there's much on this planet that is cuter than that. Oh, all that curiosity. Hello, Bubba. So Christy's raised a really logical point. If the mothers can't fit in, where do they have their cubs? And how do the cubs end up in the den site? So they'll have their cubs around the entrance to the den and then carry them up to it and put them at the entrance to the tunnel. And the cub's instinct will be to crawl blindly into the darkness and hide away there until mom calls them out. And then we've seen it with the hyenas at Gallagher Shortcut. The mom just goes and sticks her head into the entrance. Oh, look how wrinkly its skin is still. And just does soft little contact calls. Oh, this is so special. Very tiny. Maybe 2 weeks old, 2.5 weeks old. Very little. Look at the foot comparison between mom and baby. Tiny little perfect feet. And of course, impossible at this stage. Proper tummy wash. This hyena's got such a sheepish looking face. I don't know what it is about her. I was about to say, of course, it's impossible for us to determine at this point whether it's a boy or a girl. She has 2 cubs, which quite often suggests a male and a female, but not always. You can't say that with any degree of certainty. And particularly with older mothers, because their birth canal is slightly eased open from previous births, they're more likely to give birth to living twins. The younger mothers, very often, at least one cub will die in the birth process, just because of that incredible fused tract between urethra and vagina. It's the only mammal that has it, and it makes that opening incredibly narrow. Such a wonderful, tender scene. I'm so glad we found them here. Now, as to where the other cub is, I honestly don't know. It could well still be in the tunnel, just sleeping. Possibly blocked by mom's legs, although I think if it wanted to, it could come out. She'd just move for it. There's a chance, very slim, but there's a chance that it hasn't made it. Possibly, for example, from a snake bite. Snakes do occasionally enter the den. Maybe wandered away too far from the den and got snatched by an eagle, but I think that's unlikely. I think it's just sleeping in the den somewhere. Possibly pushed out of the way by the sibling. I know that we've chatted a lot about siblicide within hyena cubs and the fact that they are famed for, especially for the female cubs, for killing their siblings. Recent studies have started to show that that is less common than we originally thought. And it's starting to look like canism, which is what it's called when one sibling kills the other, is actually quite a rare occurrence. It doesn't happen as often as we think. Lucy's been very carefully observing our new hyena mother, and Lucy was saying that there are clear bite marks on the top of her head, scars, and that could be a clear identifying feature, and that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for from all of the viewers, is to look for these little details that might show up and give us a hint. We could see her in 2 days' time scavenging off a carcass and recognize her from those marks. Just bear in mind, of course, with scars, that they do occasionally heal. Some, if they're really deep, then they'll be there for the rest of their lives, like that older hyena of the older cub, mother of the older cub, with the big scar across her back. She'll have that throughout her life. But sort of superficial wounds around the head, there's a chance that they will disappear over time. But for me, the clearest sign, she hasn't made it very clear at the moment, but for me, the clearest sign is the slit in her left ear. There. Ooh. Thank you, girl. Now, if you could kindly turn that ear towards us. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. There you go. You can see at the tip. But there's those scars that Lucy was talking about. That is so clearly a bite mark. It's like a perfect arch of scars. I wonder what that came from. Probably another hyena. Oh. Jennifer, who's watching in Toronto, Jennifer wanted to know whether it's a sign of a aging matriarch that all of the subordinate females are having cubs. And no, not at all. Hyenas, all hyenas within a clan breed. That being said, you're not wrong about the fact that the matriarch's cubs have a higher success rate in terms of survival. Just because the matriarch herself has more access to nutrients, she lactates for longer, she feeds her babies for longer, and they generally stay at the den site for a little bit longer before being pushed out. But I don't think the fact that the subordinates are having cubs has any sign that she's losing her grip on the clan. They will all have babies. They tend to try and synchronize the birth. And that's just so that there's extra ears and eyes around a den site. But of course, this female has chosen to be in a very separate area. Very much. There's the second cub. There we go. Hello. Now, is it going to be bath time for you as well, little one? Or are you going to sniff Mom's feet? Going to chew on Mom's feet? I bet those teeth are very sharp. Now, if this cub would kindly oblige us by actually coming out into the open, we could have a look at the size comparison between the two. Because even at a young age, the females tend to be bigger than the males. And a bit more voracious. That little cub's just been blocked. He chewed on Mom's foot, and he got sent packing back into the den. She's now blocked him again. Him or her. But even at this age, it should be apparent if they start to squabble over access to milk and teats. You might be able to start to see whether or not it's a male-female dynamic. I'm happy that the second little cub is around. Hello, little one. It's okay. You can come out. It's fine. Giving the area a good sniff. All that curiosity and learning. And these hyena cubs have only really started exploring the world that they live in the last week or so. And that's because they're born quite blind and fairly immobile and very, very fragile little beings. And Gilly, you were wondering what the opposite of precocial is. So, for example, the Impala and the wildebeest calves that are up and about and running, they're born precocial, advanced at the time of their birth. So hyena cubs are altricial. That's the opposite. That's the word you're looking for. A description that is mainly applied to birds, but can be applied to the other animals as well. So those tiny little flightless chicks, for example, bird raptors, have those chicks without really any feather covering. Those are altricial birds, whereas the lapwings and the plovers have precocial babies. Shame, poor little cub still hasn't managed to get out and make an appearance. Possibly still dozy, enjoying the warmth of the den. Personally, I'm really loving this cool wind. Makes such a nice change. Well, she's pretty tatty. Her ears are not in the best condition. She's got bite marks on the top of her head. And Fiona, who's watching in the UK, you were wondering if that suggests maybe, or if I think that it suggests that she's a subordinate female or one of the lower ranking females. Hard to tell. I think she's just older. She's older, for example, than that perfect little hyena mum at Gallagher Shortcut. But it doesn't necessarily mean that she is low ranking. I think there's a possibility, though, just because she is off on her own. But I wouldn't say that for certain at all. Hyenas still, regardless of their rank, lead a rough and tumble existence. Just having a sniff there. And even the matriarch, or the suspected matriarch of this clan, is quite a tattered individual. It just comes with age. Scars collect, marks collect, and rips and tears in the ears, particularly in conflict over food. I don't think it necessarily means that she's subordinate, but we don't know. It could be. We just have to wait and see. Now, we know that hyenas inherit the rank of their mothers, so the cubs of the matriarch, or the daughters of the matriarch, will be a higher ranking than the others. And Connie, you've raised a very interesting point, is if, say, she has several daughters, let's say it's the matriarch, just for ease of argument, so a high-ranking female, if she has multiple sets of daughters, will they be more likely to be aggressive with each other, or more aggressive in general, due to higher levels of testosterone? My guess is yes. I think you're right, but I don't know for certain. I'm not entirely sure that anybody knows. I'm not sure how well investigated that is. We know that with mongooses and meerkats in particular, the top-ranking individuals, the females, have high levels of testosterone. Not quite to the same extent hyenas do, but we do know that. But whether or not the females of higher ranks, they will exert their dominance more, which makes me think that they do have high levels of testosterone and aggression. But that's a tricky one. I'm not too sure exactly what the answer is there. It will be interesting to see if we can get a chance to watch the way that this female interacts with other individuals. So far, we've only seen her on her own. Now, if I remember correctly, I'm now racking my brains back to when I started in June. There were the three mothers. The highest ranking was the mother of the youngest cub. At the time, she was the matriarch. Then there was the mother of the twins. That was also quite high ranking, but quite young. So possibly the matriarch's older daughter. And then there was the mother of the oldest cub at the time. I know this is really confusing. Bear with me for a moment. I'm just thinking it through in my head. And she was quite low-ranking. She was quite a low-ranking individual, just judging by the way that the others hyenas treated her. So I'm wondering whether or not this is actually a low-ranking female, but we just don't know. We don't know yet. We have to watch more interaction with her. It's interesting that the other cub hasn't decided to make an appearance. She's looking very relaxed, with her head perfectly framed by the branches, and cub is still feeding. Let's head across to Brent for now, and we'll be back with you very shortly.
So as you can see, the lions have not moved an inch, and they've rolled over a few times, but not much happening. And isn't that great that the hyenas are around? And busy and keeping you entertained. We are hoping that these lions are going to move before the end of the sunset safari. I'm starting to think it's a bit unlikely. Maybe 5 minutes before, who knows? You never know. We can try to predict animal behavior and movements as much as we want, but often they will just do the complete opposite just to keep us on our toes. Yeah. Little ear twitch is about the most movement we're going to get at the moment. So while those hyenas are being cute and the baby's around, let's go back to Jamie and see what they're up to.
The second cub has made another appearance, trying to scramble over Mom's legs. The first cub's back legs are waving about in pleasure, engrossed in feeding from Mom. Oh, come on, Mom. Make life a little bit easier for your poor little cub. Yes, come on, little one. Up you get. Don't chew Mom's toes. She'll kick you back into the den. Oh. Chewing on Mom's toes. Ah, getting brave, are we? Oh, they are so tiny. So this little one, Lois has picked up on the V on this little one's forehead. And Marianne picked up that the other cub has quite a white back foot. All features that I think will serve us well for the next week or so before they start to change. This one does have a very bald face. Oh, shame. Come on, baby. You can do it. It was almost like it was gathering strength there for the final push. Much more wary of us than the other cub was. But it will learn behavior from its mother, and as long as Mom is comfortable with us, then her babies will be too. And still, oh, fall back down again. Oh dear. Life's tough when your back legs are that weak in the beginning. Oh, scramble, scramble. There's such curiosity in that expression. That nose is already working furiously, and of course that nose will develop to be one of the most powerful in the animal kingdom, capable of smelling carcasses kilometers away. And the powerful, powerful jaws of a future bone cruncher, practicing on Mom's toes, apparently quite successfully. Oh, bath time for number 2. I love watching female hyenas with their cubs, especially when they wrap their mouths around them and you think about the incredible power that they have in their bite and how gentle they are with their offspring. It's your turn now, little one. Getting a thorough cleaning from Mom. Bounce straight back up. That is so cute. The rough and tumble of hyena existence. Now, she's off on her own at this den, which has its advantages in that her cubs are free from molestation from older hyenas. But Fiona, you were wondering if she moved them up to that other den at Gallagher Shortcut, whether they would be bullied by the other cubs. And yes, they would. They definitely would be. There's always a rough and tumble aspect. We've seen it with the cub there and then the older cub, and occasionally being dragged around and nipped unless Mom is there to put a stop to it. Oh, cute. So yes, they probably would be. But then there's the advantage of having extra sets of eyes and extra babysitters around. So the advantage of that, having that older cub, despite the fact that it might bully the younger ones every now and again, is the fact that its instincts and its senses are a little bit more highly developed. So it's got more chance of spotting a potential threat when Mom's away. Oh, Mom, you're not being very gentle in your bath. Oh, cute. Oh, the not so gentle detachment of cubs. Oh, she's quite a dirty looking one. She's been around the mud at some point. And the instinct of those little cubs at such a young age is to go straight back into the den. As soon as Mom even shows signs of moving away. Oh, hello. Mom's still here. We're so lucky that we get to watch these little creatures grow up. This whole process is entirely fascinating. Nope, back down again. The wind is picking up once again. You can see the leaves and the trees blowing. And the clouds have returned to us after a little bit of confusion as to what the weather was going to try and decide to do. And I think another stormy, turbulent night lies ahead. Luckily for these hyena cubs, unlike the poor animals of quarantine, the antelope of quarantine, they've got a nice safe den to disappear into whilst Mom heads out to look for food. She's not very full. She hasn't eaten much. And she's probably thinking of going off in search of a meal. Possibly even to see if there's any scraps of those wildebeest left after the lions were finished with them. Now, as soon as she moves away, then we will leave the den, just because the cubs are very, very young. It is starting to get dark, and we certainly won't be shining spotlights on them. And we definitely don't want to be an additional distraction that might upset the balance of things in any way. She's just standing sniffing for the moment. There's a chance she might even come back to the entrance to the den. She might just be having a look around. With the wind swirling like this, she could also be catching the scent of those lionesses. Her nose is that powerful. Brent is probably about 500 meters in that general direction. So where the wind is swirling from, I think she's going to go back. That is good news. What's the plan, Mommy? You're going to settle, or are you going to... Oh, look at that sloping back design that is so typical of the hyenas. Can see so clearly on this female, those powerful front shoulders, and then the much weaker looking back end. It's not necessarily hugely weaker, but it's definitely less powerful. Oh, she's calling. Instant response. Here we go. She called them and they came straight out. Little one trying to suckle away. Sorry, I was about to launch into Gilly's comment. Oh, there's a bit of a squeak there. Oops. That wasn't ideal, Mom. Oh, they're so cute. Just while we're looking at her back legs, Gilly, you are right. Oh, hold on. Yeah. Mommy, why did you call them out if you're about to stick them back into the... This is so interesting. This is now the second time that she's done this. I know that she did it when you were watching this hyena den with James. Oh, the little one doesn't want to go anywhere. Not having it. Straight back to den. Fascinating behavior. I'm not sure what she's thinking about doing with them. But both of them want to be in the den. They don't want to be wandering around the side there, or close to Mom at least. There, she's picking it up again, or thinking about it. Maybe she's just maneuvering them into a more comfortable spot for her. I don't know. I don't know what she's doing. Squealing. Squealing. The two of them have set up a wailing sound, running straight back to the den. This is exactly a replay of what happened with James. Oh. This is fascinating. She's calling it again. It's like she's cross with it. I think she wants to move them, and they're making life difficult for her because there's two of them. I'm not sure. That is so interesting. I'm not repositioning for the moment just because I want to see how the scenario plays out. And I don't want to add to the fear of the cubs because they're clearly quite scared. They don't want to be away from the den. I think that they're a little bit too young for her to be moving them. Raisa, there's a possibility she'd be moving them because of the lions, but I don't think so. I mean, we've had lions walk right up to hyena dens before, and the hyenas still stick around. I have a theory as to what's happening here, but I don't know. It's supposition. Let's suggest that she had her cubs here, realized that the rest of the clan is based at a different den and wants to move them, but they're too young to be moved at the moment. So hyenas, of course, they do move den sites throughout the cub's life. They will shift them around, but there has to be a few weeks of complete stability at the first den site for those cubs to get to the point where they feel secure enough to be moved around. And at the moment, this den is the only one they know. Now, if she only had one cub, she could carry it all the way without having to worry about it. But because she has two, the minute she starts to carry one and it starts to squeal, the other one starts squealing in response. So she drops the one out of concern to look back at the others, and then the other one disappears into the hole. And I think that is sort of the scenario that is being played out here. But now she's separated her two cubs because the one's gone into the one hole, the one's gone into the other. And both of them refuse to... Oh, here comes the one. I was about to say both of them refuse to respond to her calls. Really interesting. It's guesswork. What I just said is not fact, it's guess. There could be any number of reasons that we don't know behind what she's doing. But it was fascinating. That is fascinating. Oh, both cubs. There we go. So they've made it through the connecting tunnel. Reunited once again. In defiance of Mom's orders. Two little troublemakers. Fascinating. This is why I love hyenas, and I particularly love hyena dens. It is starting to get very dark, so we're limited to the time that we have left to spend here. As I said, I won't be spotlighting them. Mother Nature, you said a year ago a mother at this exact den did the same thing with her one cub, and the next day they were gone. And they do move them. I mean, they do move around. We know that they do. And they have to, at this age, carry them. It's just interesting that this scenario has now happened twice. Once with James and now with myself. And probably has played out every single evening since James saw it. And yet they still haven't moved. That's actually what fascinates me the most. Is the fact that she's attempting to move them but struggling. Hey girl, well, your baby's not listening to you. Or they're being defiant. They almost seem reticent to come out to Mom. Oh, there we go. Oh, back into the other hole. Ah. Interesting thought from Fiona, that she's taking them away from the den to teach them to find their own way back towards the den. It's an interesting theory. I'm not going to dismiss it, because I don't know whether or not that's the case, but that's quite a clever idea. I like that thought. We used to do the same thing with my dogs at home with the swimming pool. Put them in its different places and teach them how to find the step. so that we knew they could always get out. Interesting point. I don't begin to suggest that I know the answer to this. Oh, back in. I mean, she does seem sort of restless and on edge. And indecisive, almost. Like she doesn't quite know what to do with her tantruming toddlers. Really fascinating stuff. And Sarah, I think you're right. I think it would be very dangerous for... Oh, she's calling again. Very soft contact calls. Little squeaks in response. So fascinating, this whole scenario. So Sarah, who's watching in Ohio, you said it would be dangerous, surely, to move them in the dark. I happen to agree with you. I think it would be more sensible for her to move them during the day. And I know that the times that we have seen them moving, or the one or two times we've seen them moving their cubs, it has been in the morning. And I'm almost certain that hyenas are smart enough to figure that out. That just doesn't necessarily mean that they will always go by those guidelines. Such interesting behavior. Just that little head peeking out. Mom's calling, but I don't really want to go to her. Because then she's going to carry me around by my neck again. Take me to scary places. It's really hard to see in the dark, but I think that the second cub has come out to Mom. But it's so... oh no. Is that... it's very, very dark to me. Gerda, I agree. Animals are fascinating. Textbooks don't tell you nearly everything. And the animals, of course, don't read them. So don't necessarily play by the rules. And spotted hyenas in particular, to me, are so incredibly complex. Now, it has got very dark. This is as much light as we can provide you with. And I think at this point I might... oh, there's... you see, you can just see the cub moving in that tunnel. Just. Just little flashes of movement. I'm hesitant to cause them any more disruption, or any disruption at least. I think it's time for us to leave the hyena den, but it has provided us with some incredible action. I'm so glad they're still here. An overload of cuteness, and then of course some really seriously fascinating animal behavior happening here as well. But I'm going to leave them be for now. In fact, I think even Mom might be thinking about leaving the den as well. Well, thank you, hyenas. That was a special treat. And while we leave the den site, we're going to head back across to Brent, who is still with those lionesses.
So, not much has changed here. The lions are still very much asleep. A few little yawns that sort of gave an inkling that they might get moving, but then they went back to sleep. Well, this is what lions are good at. Sleeping. Move forward a tiny bit. You can see her face. Oopsie. Oh, sorry about that, girls. Just lock in. In a bit of a hole there. Oh dear, Ben, we're going to have to sleep next to the lions. There we go. Sorry about that, ladies. Little wheel spin, a noise they're not used to. Not looking very impressed with me at all. big cloud banks moved in, so it'll be good hunting weather for them in the second night in a row. Windy and dark. Coming. There we go. Big teeth. Oh, there we go. A bit of stretching. And notice them touch their faces together. Very important part of lion behavior. A shadow from the branch over her face. Two stations here, one making their way. Oh, she might go for a drink. Let's try avoid this hole. Over and back. That big hole we slipped into just now. So they spent the day sleeping next to the same little pan they drank out of this morning. And I'm just trying to sort out the spotlight lead, it's got a bit tangled. There we go. Oh dear, if they go straight from us here, it's a strong possibility we might lose them in the drainage. There's a thick drainage line. The one lioness is disappearing off there. And we'll see if the other decides to follow shortly. Yeah, the one calling to the other. She's come back a bit. Here comes the other to join. So we're coming towards the end of this sunset safari. And great hyenas with Jamie, and the lions look like they're going to get moving. Good night of hunting ahead for them. Don't think they're going to move off too far just yet. Also, wonderful elephant earlier today. Just go move quickly, see if we can get one last glance of them. You see them there, Vim? Can I keep going? Am I good? There you go. Oh, they're heading down towards the drainage line. So they're going to disappear and we're not going to be able to follow them through there. So let them be off on their way hunting for the rest of the evening. They might just sleep there. There they go. What a fantastic evening safari. Don't forget to join us on the sunrise safari tomorrow. From Jamie and myself, have a wonderful time and good night.